Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today at HBAR, and this is a major request from one of my community members, actually a few community members, of course, but more specifically a patron of mine. So thank you, Mike. I really do appreciate you recommending and asking that I cover this here today. Now, furthermore, if you're kind of just say new to the channel and you're not familiar, this is definitely for educational purposes only. I am here to help you become a better, more effective trader. So I always recommend you do your own research and make sure you learn as much as you can from as many people as possible. Don't take what I say here today as gospel. Learn as much as you possibly can, of course, and make yourself a better trader, right? I've gotten here over the last 15 years because of other people that I've learned from, right? I didn't just self-teach myself, if that makes any sense. Obviously, some things I've developed, I like this, I don't like that. But develop your own style and take ownership of your own trades, okay? That's very important that you do that. But if you're more of an autopilot person, I do have a link in the description below for my Patreon account where you can essentially join that. You can communicate with me directly, but more importantly, I send out signals, 3 to 5 signals per week, entry points, profit targets, sell targets, everything you need to know to be more of an effective trader. I basically just share my trades with my community members. Okay, so check that out in your own time. Awesome group. What's really awesome too is we actually have a Telegram community as well. That's separate, of course, but that's kind of a free community. You can jump in there and check that out and learn as much as you can. Link in the description below for that as well. If you're not already a member, if you are, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you. I wouldn't be here without you, honestly. I mean, I would never imagine I'd be at almost 13,000 members or subscribers in just under 4 months. That's really amazing. So thank you again so much for all the support you've shown me. You're really awesome people. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the charts. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at HBAR. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first. So if you're new to the channel, it's the best way to get a full understanding of the market before you jump in and invest, right? So even though the coin we're going to look at here today isn't exactly on the ERC20 blockchain or essentially reliant on Bitcoin to the fullest extent, it's still really important because those two do control the market for the most part. Obviously Bitcoin is the largest catalyst in the market, and a lot of people will take their positions from Bitcoin, transition over to Ethereum, and kind of go back and forth. So you'll see them fluctuate sometimes. So it's important to look at the. We'll go ahead and take a look here first. Now, to preface, first of all, I use TradingView.com desktop application, okay? So if you are interested in checking it out for yourself, maybe getting a free month, link in the description below for that. There is a free month offered there as a potential option for you. You're not required to do that by any means, but in order to have more than 2 indicators present at any given time, it's recommended to do that. So check that out, of course. Paid versions are fantastic. If you do this consistently, inconsistently, it's worth investing in. Just letting you know. Again, I use this every single day, but if you're even inconsistent there, maybe check it out. That being said, we're looking at Bitcoin in the 4-hour chart here. I have a lot of lines here, of course, but these are support and resistance levels that have just kind of developed. So there's 2 here in the middle. They're just kind of starting, but I think they're worth mentioning. First of all, we got a major resistance at 50,000, major support at 44. So that's a large channel. The secondary channel is 46,800. and 44,000 even. Okay, I know I already mentioned that. That is actually technically the larger channel that it's in. This one down here is a secondary. There is a support at about 42,200. I don't think we need to worry about that yet. Okay, so again, 44 to 46,800. That's this little channel here. And within that, we have a support level developing at about 44,800 and a resistance at about 46,000. And the reason I say that is because the fact that the 1-day chart did close yesterday, right around here at 44,008, and today so far that's the lowest point it's gone. So it's pretty consistent there in that sense. Then on the 4-hour chart, you can kind of see that there's a tentative resistance at about 46,000. I notice the price keeps rejecting at 46. Okay, so just something to kind of understand. Furthermore, we are under both moving averages, but there's a strong chance that the 50 will come down and intersect with the 200 here soon. Some refer to this as a death cross. I don't think it's much to worry about, especially if this is going to happen over the weekend. The industry leaders, the whales, whatever you want to call them, those jerks that really shape our market and manipulate it for the most part, they're kind of on pause over the weekend, right? So we don't need to necessarily worry about this. This should actually happen within the next 24 hours, probably sometime tomorrow. But regardless, don't put a lot of weight into that. It's more so the 1-day chart that's more relevant. And technically speaking, we have a golden cross developing on the 1-day chart. Either way, I don't care to buy into that too much. So just take that with a grain of salt, or whatever grains you prefer to consume. So take a look here. We've got what, this is Ethereum first of all, 3250 is the support, and the major resistance is 3550. Okay, so again, this $300 channel, it's essentially working itself within, still pretty much staying inside of that. Even though, yes, this candlestick did close a little bit lower, about 3200, we're pretty much right in the same range. Okay, if we look at the one-day chart, you can see that this is a major resistance there. New potential support, though, just keep in mind, could be 3200. I think 3250 is a little more consistent with the previous price action, but on the one day, 3200 is essentially the number. And bear in mind, prices under the 200 and the 50-day simple moving average. Same scenario here, is just a little bit of a delay. We may see a golden correction, a death cross happen here in the near future, but again, I don't put a lot of weight into that. I'd much rather rely on the one-day chart, in which the 50 is working as a support level on the one-day chart. All right, so that's enough about Ethereum. Moving on to HBAR here. Now, I haven't covered this in a little while, and I just want to kind of urge you to exercise some caution. Day trading can be a very, I guess, a bit challenging on this one here, just based on the way that it does tend to move. It's very sporadic. But regardless, I just want to kind of throw that out there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the one-day chart and kind of see here. And the reason why I say that too, you see how these candlesticks have really large wicks? That just shows us there's a lot of volatility, which is all well and good, but sometimes it's not the most consistent. So, oftentimes if you have, just say you're swing trading, you want to have a larger, stop loss or profit targets, because of the fact that it does tend to spike up and, drop fairly quick within a short time frame. So, if you can kind of see here, there's been a lot of that so far, but more so it tends to close really close to its open and just an increment higher or lower. But throughout the entire trading day, all the way up, all the way down. It's an interesting phenomenon I've noticed with HBAR, but again, it's more financial related. There's reasons for that. And that's, again, something for another video. Do your own research, of course, but HBAR is obviously a little bit different. But it is still a good coin. I think more long-term potential here for HBAR is very, very likely. It definitely has some really strong long-term potential. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look here. First of all, we've got the golden cross about to cross, essentially. That's happening with a lot of coins right now. Is that the reason for the price movement to jump up the way it is right now? Perhaps. That could very well factor in. A lot of times that does. But I don't know. I don't personally put a lot of weight into it. I don't base my trades on that. It's kind of an additional factor that it's helpful, but it shouldn't be your only primary reason to invest. We want to look at other factors. But either way you look at it here, HBAR is recovering quite quickly from the retracement that occurred recently from Bitcoin. So what is it, about 5 days ago, Bitcoin saw it off 20%. This obviously came down that amount, but a day later, it was right back to where it started, if not higher, and now it continues. Okay, so that's kind of giving us some good signals here that basically tells us if your coin that you're investing in ramped back up quickly as a result of that trade-off that happened with Bitcoin recently, that significant retracement that all altcoins essentially suffered from, then we're going to find it to be very beneficial here moving forward, because coins that actually bounce back and recover quickly when Bitcoin's still going sideways means it was meant to be here in the first place. So whether or not that had happened, it would have still been here, right? It's not just that knee-jerk reaction and people buying into it. It's based on the simple fact that it had a lot of good momentum. It was obviously in a small state of consolidation here. This just kind of kicked it into overdrive where it just ramped up here today. Okay. So you see this with a lot of coins right now. It's kind of nice. And that's a really good way to identify strong coins that are going to probably have more long-term potential, or they're going to be the ones that are going to start this this alt season, right? So if you're not familiar with alt season, basically what happens is, Ethereum is the first one to take off, which it did recently, and then a lot of the large market capitalization coins take off as well. HBAR is one of those. And then obviously after that all happens, once a lot of those large market cap coins increase and kind of start breaking their previous all-time high, which is happening a lot right now, Solana, ADA, there's quite a few of them, of course. It's hard to name them all, but the bottom line here is that HBAR is kind of following suit, and other altcoins will do that too. So if you see a coin coming up on its previous all-time high and it's behaving like this, there's a strong chance that it'll continue to break that and start making higher highs and higher lows and new all-time highs daily. Okay. That being said, we're not quite there yet, but HBAR is close. So I wouldn't be surprised if this happens soon. I'm going to probably pay close attention to HBAR here in the near future. But what we want to do really quick before I move on is just go ahead and mark the most recent all-time high. And that was approximately 41 cents. When I say approximate, that's almost exactly on the nose. It's interesting how that works. I don't know if you've noticed this at all, but with major support and resistance levels develop at very specific round numbers. So I mean, this could be 41.10, 41.15. It's exactly 41, right? So it's really awesome that that happens because it's really kind of easy to, I guess, track. But for lack of better terms, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. Okay, so we're at about 38 cents. We got 3 cents more to go until we have potential resistance that's going to be tested here, or no, major resistance that will be tested. All right, moving on to the 4-hour chart. RSI is still under 70. That's great. We've got more room for growth, so there's a good chance we might actually see that tested here soon. MACD just converged, of course, so why don't we go ahead and mark that on the chart and then take a look at the shorter time frame, see if that correlates with the Ichimoku cloud. But I see nothing but good things here. Obviously, this little retracement here wasn't supposed to happen. Hopefully some of you are able to buy the dip. 25 cents would have been a good value. And obviously, price action is continuing. So really good stuff here for HBAR. Let's go and take a look at the 1-hour chart and just quickly identify the Ichimoku cloud. And as you can kind of see here, I marked the 4-hour convergence in the MACD. If you're new to the channel, the two most important things you can use to identify entry points, good entry points for long positions, in other words, a position you're going to hold for a longer period, then look no further than the MACD on the 4-hour charts. The moving average convergence divergence on the 4-hour chart is fantastic. That's what I just marked here. That's when the price intersects, the 12 intersects with the 26. It's essentially exponential moving averages. When those intersect, essentially, it creates kind of a buy signal because it's telling you the bears are losing control and the bulls are in control. So this little bearish push here, they lost control, they were exhausted, price comes up, and it breaks through this resistance here. Therefore, that was marked on the countant. You'll hear me say calendar a lot. Unfortunately, there's time on here, but I'm referring to the charts. On the chart here, what happens is it breaks through the chart on the 1-hour chart. And what's this? Interestingly enough, the Ichimoku cloud, no less than 1 hour later, after we get a MACD convergence on the 4-hour chart, we've got a breakthrough on the Ichimoku cloud. Okay, so that's like a double rainbow. That's a very awesome indicator, and it's something you want to pay attention to. So see how the MACD is converging on the 4-hour chart. 1-day chart as well, also very beneficial. But looking at the 1-hour chart and identifying the Ichimoku cloud, the prices above the cloud, that's exactly the point you want to take entry. So right here would have been a good entry point, what, about 33 cents? You'd be up a good, what kind of percent is that, 10, 15%? Yep, right about 14, you could round up and say 15% would have been your gain had you got in right about there. Okay, so again, I know it's easier said than done. This is hindsight, it's always 20/20, but that is essentially what I look for when I send out signals to my community, right? And by the way, I do have a signal group where I basically provide you with all of my trades, as well as swing trade, hodl trades, and potential setups like these before they occur, right? Usually send about 3 to 5 signals per week. Link in the description below. Check that out, of course. But what I'm getting at here is you want to be mindful of those things because they really help you have an effective edge. Now, if you're more of a day trader, all good. You don't have to look for those things. But it's helpful if you do, right? That's why no matter what kind of trade I utilize or what trade I'm in, I'm doing the exact same thing here that you see here today. And this gives me about an 80% success rate overall in all of my trades. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's very beneficial to go large time frame, smaller time frame, and then obviously identify where Bitcoin's at presently. Because if it's testing a lower support level, it might be a good time to add a long position in one of these altcoins that's respondent to Bitcoin's movement, right? You know, like you could see that happen with a lot of coins right now that are actually very reliant on Bitcoin's movement. So sometimes they're more exaggerated and they have 2 or 3x potential compared to Bitcoin, and you can multiply your income a lot better that way. We see that with BNB a lot. Like I oftentimes buy the dip with BNB because it's more exponential growth. It has like a 1.5x compared to Bitcoin. So investing BNB at 400 is the same thing as 46,000 for Bitcoin, but you can get to 500 a lot quicker than you can 49, 50,000 for Bitcoin. I hope I'm making sense. I apologize, I tend to ramble, but I wanted to let you know that there's definitely little things you want to try to pick up on. But HBAR is on a good track right now. It's up over the cloud. Let's take a look at TD Sequential next. And as per usual, TD Sequential doesn't 100% work on HBAR a lot of times, just based on the way it works. But here, let me give you some examples. Actually, recently it does give us some good points that I want to explain here. So if you're new to TD Sequential, it basically just takes a sequence of candlesticks and counts up to 9. Once it hits a 9, it resets, and that's when the price is supposed to retrace, either come back down if it's going up, or it'll bounce back up if it's going down. So here's an example. When the price is going down, it starts counting from a 1. And what it's doing is it's taking the 4th previous candlestick to identify if it's lower. And then it keeps counting up. Once it hits a 9, look at that. Once it hit that 9, it went to a period of consolidation, then eventually reset and started working its way up. See here, 1 through 9, sideways action, consolidation, starts counting back up again to another 9. And now we're at a point in which it had to retrace and come back down. So again, this is not foolproof by any means, but if you can kind of see here, we got a 1 through a 9, and then we got a reset. The price went sideways, and now it's starting to kick back up again. So it basically tells us there's gas left in the tank for HBAR, and the fact this could continue to move up to its previous all-time high of 41 cents. And when I say could, I think it's just an inevitability at this point. Will it happen today? Maybe not, but in the near future, I think so. Because if you think about it right now, Bitcoin's going down. Generally speaking, Bitcoin's going down right now in the last 48 hours when HBAR is going up. What does that tell you? That tells you that it's got its own plan and its own way of wanting to grow, right? So there's a lot of things you want to kind of try to consider. That's why it's helpful to look at Bitcoin first, because if you can see that this coin is doing much better than Bitcoin is right now, imagine what this thing is capable of when Bitcoin does well. Because I know when Bitcoin does well, and we can look at this in the past, HBAR has done very good, right? So we look here, back in March, for example, like all of March was huge. Like we had a significant growth. What is that? 172% approximately from March 7th up to the 15th. So in 1 week, it did fantastic. And bear in mind, March, April is when Bitcoin was at 64,000 range, or somewhere between 50 and 64,000. Okay, so obviously it has propensity to take off. Now, obviously, it didn't take off. It did poorly because, again, the financial sector was hit with the China candle on, back in May. I think it was what, the 9th or no, 18th, I think it was. And you can see this, there we go, the 19th. It came all the way back down. But, coincidentally, HBAR has been doing fairly well considering where it's come from. So if it can do this when Bitcoin is in between 50 to 60,000, and now it's doing that while Bitcoin is sub 50,000, do the math. Where's HBAR going to be when Bitcoin creeps back up to 60,000? I think it's still very likely. In fact, I am a big consideration for Bitcoin being 70, 80, maybe even 100,000 plus this year. I think it's very likely based on previous metrics. And what I'm referring to is the 4-year cycle. So if you're familiar with the 4-year cycle, get familiar. If you aren't already, check out my other video on that. There's more to it, of course. I just kind of skimmed the surface, but generally speaking, if you look at September 2013, September 2017 rather, and now September 2021, those are all red months. But the month following September is huge. It's almost like a 2x for the most part. It cranks up fast. So I'm speculating here. In October, we're going to see some pretty amazing things from Bitcoin. It makes perfect sense at September. They're taking their profits, and there's a financial ramifications for that. There's a reason for it, but that's influencing a lot of things. So I guess long story short here, we don't really even need to go down to the 15-minute chart to identify what's going on with HBAR. I think swing trading potential, HBAR is very good. Yes, it's overextended right now. There's no doubt about that. It might retrace some. But whether or not you can entry point in now or 34 cents, I think that we're still going to see this previous all-time high break, and it will likely continue to get higher. I mean, I think $1 is very likely for HBAR here in the very near future. Next couple months, I think we will see $1 from HBAR. That's my speculation just based on the information provided here. Keep in mind, you want to do your own research. There's some really good fundamentals for HBAR. Take a look at that in your own time. There's a reason why it doesn't crank up super hard, super fast. But the fact that it's doing that now, contrary to Bitcoin doing poorly, I think that's a really good sign. So I hope you found benefit. If you do, please consider liking and subscribing. And obviously, join my Telegram community too. We've got some good group of folks there. And it's obviously no cost. It's a free group that I have. Link in the description below. And also reference my Patreon account because, again, I send out signals weekly. Well, actually a lot throughout the week. But, over the weeks, I would say I average about 3 to 5 signals per week just to kind of give you some heads up on things that I'm doing, my trades that I take. And it's kind of just an interactive experience to be able to work with me essentially. And a lot of my community members are really benefiting greatly from it. And obviously, if that is something you might need, you're more of an autopilot person, you kind of like to follow along, but also learn, then I would recommend checking that out. Either way, thank you so much for your time here today. We'll look forward to seeing the next video. You take care now.